Good morning and welcome to everyone to our long-awaited Community Justice Collaborating Council. As you know, we canceled the May meeting because we were in transition at that point, and transition now permits me to introduce our new director, coordinator of the Criminal Justice Collaborating Council, but also the chair, the director of the Justice Services Center, and that's Phil Golly, who is certainly no stranger. We knew him as Professor Golly when he would present at other meetings regarding our treatment court and some of the work that the university was doing to assist us in gathering evidence and information. We brought now Dr. Golly, who he completed his PhD in May, on board, I think, end of April. And I concluded it wasn't fair to throw him into his first meeting within 3 days of coming on board and starting work here. So we certainly welcome Phil to the table. We welcome him to the county. We welcome him to his 2 new roles in serving us, but also serving the Justice Services Center. So Phil, why don't you just tell us a few things about yourself, and then we'll formally get going here.
Good morning. Morning. Yeah, it's great to be here. As Judge said, I presented a number of times in front of the CJCC and done some work with a lot of the folks around the table here. So I look forward to continuing that collaboration. It's been a great 7 or 8 weeks to start off. So thank you, and I'm sure we'll be interacting a lot more, and I'll be doing a couple different things here. So bear with me. I apologize. There were some snafus with the agenda and the minutes, so hopefully as we move forward, I'll get a better grasp of some of the systems. But yeah, good to be here.
Generally, I would ask someone to call the roll, but because Phil's new and we have some new members who, first, we certainly welcome Chairman Long to the body. Chairman Long replaced Dave Peterson, who had been County Board Chair, and we really appreciate his leadership, both on the County Board, but also his involvement with this group. We welcome Mark Lemke back, who rejoins us. He had a brief hiatus in Pierce County and concluded that things are always greener in St. Croix, so we welcome him. We welcome him back to St. Croix. I think those are the only 2 new. And what I'm going to ask is everyone go around the table. It will help Phil kind of know who you are and why you're here, what role you serve on the committee. And so, Heather, why don't you start?
Heather Amos, Corporation Counsel for St. Croix County.
Michael Waterman, Circuit Court Judge, Branch 4.
Bob Long, St. Croix County Board Chair.
Scott Nordstrand, Circuit Judge, Branch 1.
Good morning. Craig Wyman, Probation Parole Supervisor.
As just announced, Mark Lemke, Permanent Corrections Supervisor, Probation Parole.
Christy Severson, St. Croix County Clerk of Court.
Mark Richard, Chief of Police for the Village of North Hudson, representing the Chiefs of Police in St. Croix County.
Kate Avalis, I am a private attorney and I represent the Bar Association in St. Croix County.
I'm Sue Garrity. I'm the Municipal Judge for the City of Hudson and the Liaison for the 10th District.
Bob Fiedler, I'm on the County Board and I'm here in my role as Public Protection and Judiciary Committee Chair.
Good morning. I'm Bob Raird. I'm the Director of Health and Human Services.
I'm Lisa Maltoff. I'm the Diversion Program Supervisor for the District Attorney's Office.
Tina Sitz. I'm the Lead Compass Assessor and Pretrial Case Manager for St. Croix County.
Ashley Barthel. I'm also a Compass Assessor and Treatment Court Case Manager.
I'm Kate Brewer. I'm the Treatment Court Coordinator for St. Croix County.
Hello, I'm Agnes Ring. I'm a citizen member, and I also serve for the Family Resource Center, St. Croix Valley.
Kurt Thomaston, faith-based representative.
Good morning, Ailey Peterson, CEO for Western Wisconsin Health.
I'm Ken Witt, the County Administrator. Good to meet you, Phil.
And sitting in the corner is Travis Sartorius, who is our managing public defender, but also a member of the council.
I have to sneak up for an 8:30 hearing. That's why I try to be discreet here in the back.
And Eric Ellenwood is here also representing the District Attorney's Office, and there is room at the table. We can make more room if you'd like to join us.
Sure.
And the sheriff has just arrived, Sheriff Scott Knutson. Thank you. The minutes from the March 10th meeting were included in your materials. I think ultimately, again, as Phil said, we had some challenges in finding them, uploading them. So has everyone had a chance to review them? And if so, is there a motion to approve as submitted?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Second? Second by Ms. Avalos. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda is public comment. I know we have a number of folks in the gallery. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment? Public comment going twice. Public comment going 3 times. Thank you. Business items seem rather exhaustive in terms of what we want to cover today. Much of it is reporting out. And so first, treatment court update, Ms. Brewer, and I think Judge Nordstrand, who is presiding. Kate, tell us what's going on in treatment court.
Sure. So currently, right now, we have 21 participants between both of our tracks. Right now, we are a full court. It's usually 20 to 25 is a full court. Currently, now we have 14 are on our referral and waiting list, so we will be a full court for at least the next year. We've had 4 graduations in the last 6 months and 2 terminations. Some of our accomplishments the last quarter have been having some really good communication with our behavioral health. That is a huge part of treatment court and doing our matrix program and treatments. So we have gone over our treatment dosage hours, which a national standard is 200 treatment hours in our program. We have discussed with them that we need to get that a little bit more than what the current program was, and we have reached that right now. So that has been a huge accomplishment for us. Also, we are working now with CCS, the Comprehensive Community Service, to boost that not just in St. Croix, but in our treatment court. We have a few members that are in that program. Our goals for the next quarter. We have our national convention that is in Nashville in a few weeks. Most of our team, except our judge, is actually going to that, unfortunately. So we'll gain all of our updated evidence-based programming, seeing what we can add to our treatment court on that, and also obtaining a new DOC representative in the coming months. Judge Nordstrand, what do you got?
All right. Well, it's been a while since we talked. I will say we're going to have a treatment court committee meeting or subcommittee meeting. I'm not sure if it's a subcommittee or a committee, but whatever it is, we're having it on August 8th, I think, at noon. So everyone's welcome to attend if you'd like. We've had a lot of transition in terms of our team over the last year, starting with me, right? So a year ago or so, I took over from Judge Waterman and became the 3rd judge in history of St. Croix County Treatment Court. I'm always reminded that Judge Black spent 10 years doing it, which is amazing. But in any case, I've been at it a year, so I'm relatively new. I will say that I went to the national conference last year, so I had the benefit of that. And I know that we've got a lot of new people, as I said. Let's see, Ashley is relatively new here as well. Kate, of course. The district attorney is relatively new to treatment court, given the change in district attorney's office. We've had 2, again, relatively new probation agents that have been assisting us in our 2 tracks. I guess there's going to be another transition coming up. And perhaps this coming time, I know it's still up in the air, and Mark will be working on that, is that perhaps we'll have 1 agent, and that could be a good thing in terms of consolidating our efforts. 1 long-term participant, Kayla Turpin, our substance abuse counselor and representative from HHS. She provides continuity for us and grounding for us, having been there for a number of years. The Sheriff's Department has a new representative, Tom Williams, as well. And of course, the senior member of our treatment court team, Liesl Nelson, has been there, I think, since the beginning. So she's actually done this for 15 years, which is extraordinary. So that's our team, and so that's part of the reason that so many people are going to the national conference, is to try to give them some grounding. And I will say, I'm not a great big advocate of conferences. We judges get sent to lots of them. But this is an amazing place. There's 5,000-6,000 people coming together in Nashville to learn about treatment court and all of the new ideas and information. And the best part about it is you've got about 6 things to choose from at any moment in the day. And so it'll be a great opportunity for our people there. Now, so that's sort of an introduction to where we're at. I want to encourage everybody to come to treatment court. Come and take a look. We're there every Wednesday at 8:30. Our chairman was there yesterday. Bob Fiedler was there as well as Dan Hansen. We had 3 county board members there for a graduation yesterday, and that was impressive. And they all congratulated the graduate, and I think he appreciated that. So it's a very positive thing to have people who participate in our criminal justice system to show up and be a part of treatment court as well. Let's see. We're in the process of revising, doing some changes to our governing documents, our manual. You'll hear more about that perhaps at the next meeting, we'll see. But we're trying to update our manual to address a few things that have come up over the years, and also to look at what the national standards are now and what we can do to coordinate with that. The one thing I'll say is, last time we talked, I think we talked a little bit about the issue in Track 2 of the OWI court, and the fact that the increased penalties, mandatory penalties associated with OWI 5 and 6, took folks out of our system because there's a mandatory prison component to those convictions now. So we were concerned that what's going to happen to Track 2, which is largely our OWI track, because they were not going to be readily available for treatment court as they would be in prison. I think what's happened is essentially what we thought was going to happen. The numbers have been declining. We have, for various reasons, we've presently got about 2 active people in Track 2. There are some other people, one in treatment, and some other people that have had some bumps in the road, let's just say, and we're addressing those. But it's definitely coming down. I don't know what that's going to look like in the future, but that may be something that we sort of as a policy body have to think about. What is it we can do about the drunk driving defendants going forward? If the OWI 5s and 6s are going to prison, which they generally are, then what do we do about the 3s and 4s in particular, which hasn't been the focus of treatment court? 4s, yes. 3s, very seldom unless it's a serious injury or something involved, a higher level offense. So it's just something to keep on the in the front of our minds, because I think it could be that as we get some of these folks graduating out, we've got 2 that are relatively close to graduation, the 2 active ones. And at that point, we could be down to a very small Track 2. So if anybody's got any questions for either Kate or I, by the way, it's great to have Kate here and it's great to have Phil here. They've been enormous assets to the treatment court team and process. Questions?
Pastor.
Judge, how do you recruit? And for example, if somebody's their first offense, are you trying to get them in before they get to, 4 and 5? Is there a way to try to get everybody who has an OWI charge into the treatment court?
It's really not designed for that. It's designed for the highest level need and risk people. So obviously the risk levels go up for various reasons, but certainly the number of offenses is an indicator of the risk. And the need is determined by our friends at HHS who do evaluations of their actual addiction, substance abuse needs. And so what we're trying to do is to find the highest of the high, the most risky people in terms of risk to the community and in terms of their own needs in terms of their addictive disease, to find them and get them help. We're not on the bottom end. Now, there are programs, and other counties have them. I think it's called IDIP, Intoxicated Driver Improvement Programs. Counties around us, I think Pierce and Polk, both have them. And they're a different system, a system designed to create treatment opportunities and incentives to people who are facing lower level offenses. But we've only got those 20, 25 spots, and we've really got to be looking at the highest level needs. So it's an open question, I think, on what we do about the lower level OWIs.
Other questions? Supervisor.
I have to display my ignorance with my question, but I'll just pose it to Judge Nordstrom. Is there a problem that we have in locating adequate treatment for the folks, and particularly residents for the folks? And if there is this a group that maybe can create an ad hoc subcommittee to look into that and see if we can work with everybody around this table and others to resolve that issue?
Well, we do have, and I think everyone in the substance use disorder community is experiencing a lack of residential treatment beds. And perhaps, and I don't know this because we have access to intensive outpatient treatment through our friends at HHS, but the residential treatment is not something that's provided by the county. It has to be provided by a third-party entity, and there's not a lot there. Now, I can tell you, because the story played out in treatment court, in public, that we've had participants that have waited up to 6 weeks to try to get into inpatient treatment when it had already been determined by everybody involved, the Department of Corrections and HHS, that this person needed the treatment. So that's problematic, but it's a bigger question than us. Now, is it possible the county could do something to look for relationships with other providers, additional providers? I suppose that's possible. That's sort of beyond my scope. But we have relationships with certain providers, and perhaps that could be expanded. I know the Department of Corrections has stepped in, and I want to thank them because that particular situation, they stepped in and took this individual and put them in a treatment center down by Milwaukee. Brand new, beautiful place. We do video conferences with this particular participant, and it's extraordinary. So we take help from everywhere we can get it, Bob, and so we'd be happy to have. But and it's not like it's every day, okay? We don't have that need every day. We have a need right now. Somebody we're waiting to get into inpatient treatment, but I would say every few months there's somebody probably that enters the program, or in the midst of their treatment court participation, it becomes apparent, as confirmed by our HHS, that inpatient treatment is necessary. And there is 4 to 6 week wait regardless of the time.
Other questions? Yes.
I just want to say one thing from the defense perspective, going back to the OWI question with regards to what do we do with these 3-4 OWIs, and treatment court, I understand the benefit. We all understand that. From the defense perspective, to put it bluntly, I can't imagine a scenario currently with the model that we have in St. Croix where I would ever recommend treatment court for a third and fourth participant, because there's no incentive as the system is built and designed right now for somebody that's facing an OWI 3 or 4 to go into treatment court. And that's kind of scary to say, but the system is designed where there is sentencing guidelines for 3 and 4, and they kind of know, the participant knows what they're going to get. Treatment court is a very hard program. There's lots of meetings, testing, counseling sessions. It's a big commitment, especially for somebody that often doesn't have a license or transportation. To tell them to go into this 2-year program and not get any kind of incentive to do that, they're not getting any reduction in sentence, most likely. They're actually perhaps getting a longer period of supervision, not only from probation, but also now treatment court. It's hard for me to go back to somebody as this model is designed right now and say, yeah, you should consider that. It's going to be a lot more work for not any more benefit. So that's our problem from the defense perspective. If we want to see about how to tackle OWI 3 and 4s, we have to really look at what are we going to do to tell that person, yes, this is a program that's really going to help you, and yes, you should buy into that. Until we kind of rethink what we're doing with incentivizing it, I don't think the current model is ever going to be appropriate from our perspective for a 3 and 4 to say, sign up for this. That's from our perspective.
So, and that's real important to understand, you know, a commitment to treatment court, regardless of tracks, now is about a 1.5-year commitment, you know, on average. And it can be longer depending on your abilities in terms of how successful you are. You know, coming to see me every week, then every 2 weeks, then every 4 weeks, and going to see Kate every week or so, and all the treatment commitments, and 3 meetings a week, you got to go to AA meetings or the like. All that commitment in the face of what you might face as a penalty for an OWI 4, it's a hard sell. And obviously treatment court was essentially designed to be an alternative to prison. That's what it was built for. And if OWI 3s and 4s aren't going to prison, which generally in this area they're not, then that creates a problem. The incentive isn't there. So that's where looking at some lesser, a program with lesser obligations, like perhaps an IDIP program or something like that, might be something to consider, because you've got to convince people to participate.
Thank you. Item 2 is warrant resolution day. Judge Nordstrand, tell us warrant resolution day went.
Well, we've done two of them now, and we had half a dozen folks participate the first time. That was an in-person effort. For those who aren't familiar, the idea is there are over 1,000 outstanding warrants, criminal warrants here in St. Croix County, various types, felony and misdemeanor. And then there's other warrants. There's Department of Corrections warrants. There's also warrants in connection with child support obligations, etc. So there's lots of warrants out there and a lot of people that we'd like to talk to. And so the idea was bring them in here, give them a chance where we aren't promising they won't go to jail. We can't really do that because perhaps they show up and they've got a felony warrant from some other county and there's really nothing we can do. But we promise to work very hard to not have them go to jail and to get them back on the calendar and process their case. The problem is this. We did it, we spent a half a day, scheduled a half a day the first time to do this. We had the district attorney there, the public defender manager himself was there. We had representatives from the Corporation Council, we had Department of Corrections and their staff, and everybody was ready, willing, and able, and we had 5 or 6 people show up. And we did resolve a few warrants there, but it was not particularly effective use of time. So we thought, well, let's try it again. Let's have some more attention in terms of, I think, the district attorney and I did a TV interview on the River Channel. I don't know if anybody saw it. Anybody see it? Okay, well, that might be part of the problem. So that was, we had Facebook, we had different things, and we offered people the opportunity to do it on Zoom this time. thought, well, maybe somebody, you know, down in Texas with an outstanding warrant might want to call in. And we got, half a dozen maybe. And we resolved a few things, and we set up them dates to show up, and some people showed up and some didn't. And here's my take on it, just as a judge participating, and I haven't really talked to the other participants, but I think it may be something that isn't worth the time and effort right now. Because it's a lot of effort, a lot of organization. The Sheriff's Department supports us on the process, as all these agencies, and we probably resolved less than 10 warrants in 2 times. So it's a great idea. For some reason, it's worked elsewhere, but you know, if somebody's got a way to bolster the participation, I'd be glad to be there. But one suggestion was that perhaps we have Child Support Tuesdays. And there were quite a few people from the child support world that did participate, probably more than a lot. Maybe we put an hour aside on some Child Support Tuesday to just address those. You could send out the letters, or the Child Support Agency could send out the letters, and we can try to do that. But that's my take on it, and I'm open to any questions about it. I wish it worked, but I don't think it really did.
Any questions or comments about Warrant Resolution Day? And again, we'll look at it, you know, at the Executive Committee level and potentially at the Criminal Justice Subcommittee level, but again, sometimes the best of efforts don't bear the results that we wanted. Next is Justice Services Center update. Phil is going to walk us through what's happening there.
Sure, thank you. So before I start, I just want to thank my colleagues, Ashley, Kate, Tina, and Kelly, and Shelby's not here, but I appreciate the help the last couple months. You guys have been great. So for Justice Services, I think the first thing to acknowledge is this new model that we have, the civilian-run model for pretrial services, just I think on June 21st hit its 1-year anniversary. So that's, I think, a huge accomplishment. So for those that may not be aware, we transitioned here in St. Croix County from a law enforcement run to a civilian run model the last year. And again, I've been on board for 7.5 weeks of that. And but from what I can tell, things are going great. The staff is working really hard. The county's very supportive. So we're really encouraged. We have some, I think, great ideas for directions and working with the judges and law enforcement, public defender, and the DA about where we can continue to improve. But we're doing a really nice job there. Just a couple numbers that I want to throw out. So it looks like in the month of June we tested. So testing is the majority of the work that we do, drug testing, substance use testing in a number of different ways. We tested about 450 people, or maybe that's not unique people, but we did about 450 tests. So we're doing quite a bit of testing down there, which makes sense. That's, again, the lion's share of what we do. So that, remains something. We have a contract with Premier Biotech, and they have a technician on site that helps us. We had a transition recently, and that seems to be going really well. So that's kind of an update on our testing. Next Friday, the JSC will be going down to La Crosse County, and we're going to observe how they do their pretrial services down there. They have a bit of a different model. They run theirs through their Health and Human Services. So we're going to go down there and spend a day with them and kind of do an on-site learning experience. So I think we're really excited about that. We have a posting for a new pretrial services case manager that closes on Friday. So we'll be adding another staff member, I would say sometime between mid to end of August. So again, hoping to increase capacity for testing, supervision, other types of services. That brings me to the next point. This person, along with a couple other staff in our department, will be offering, hopefully, MRT, so moral recognition therapy, which is a cognitive behavioral program that's very, very popular in the field of corrections. So the hope is that we in Justice Services will be taking over offering that here in the next couple months, shall we say. So the person we bring on will be responsible for offering that as well. The last two items I have about the JSC team will be going down to Atlanta in September for the NAPSA conference. It's a National Pretrial Services Conference, so they'll be going down there. This will be your guys' first time, right, going down? Tina? Sorry.
It's my second time.
Second time.
I presented in 2019 there with Lisa Maltoff
Okay.
In the diversion track, but
Okay.
it is the rest of them, their first time going.
Great. Thank you. So that'll be, I think, a great learning experience for everybody. And then the last update, because I believe this happened right around the time of the last meeting, maybe a couple weeks after, Injustice Services at the end of March, we started using the Public Safety Assessment, or the PSA. So for those of you that have been around in the courtrooms, have likely seen this. So we're 3 months into using this instrument. It's a pretrial safety assessment. Essentially, we look at criminal history and we bring a report back to the judges. So during intake in the afternoons, they can use that information to inform some of the decisions that they have for the person that's in front of them. This is a popular instrument through Advancing Pretrial Policy and Practice, Pretrial Policy and Research, excuse me, a national organization that does a lot of research and training, implementation. So we're looking forward to continuing using that and the benefits of that instrument. That's all I have on the JSC.
Any questions of Phil? He mentioned that we have a new person doing the testing from Premier Biotech, and it's a male, which is of benefit because we can now do viewed UAs, which we weren't able to do with the prior person who was a female. So I think that is something that will enhance our testing protocols. And as he said, this has been a transition for the district attorney's office, for the public defender, for the judges, from going from this law enforcement model where capacity wasn't an issue. I mean, the sheriff provided the resources, provided the staff, and we tested a lot of people at a variety of levels, and so we're all kind of adjusting our mindset, so to speak, as to who do we really need to test, who do we need to put on a GPS or other types of monitoring. And so it is what I call still a work in progress. We're a little over a year into it, I think, Sheriff. We transitioned April of last year or so. And Phil has done an excellent job of getting up to speed and shepherding his colleagues and group, but we're still, as I said, a work in progress and coming up hopefully with the capacity, hopefully with the public protection considerations, but the instruments that we're seeing at 1 o'clock every day from, I think Tina does most of them, are really an important tool for me as a judge, and I know the district attorney and the public defender in trying to set bond or bail that is individualized. It's unique to this person. It's not a cookie cutter approach. And so those tools have really been beneficial. I'm still trying to figure out how to read them, but they've been beneficial. Pastor, you had a question or comment?
No.
Okay. Did anyone have any questions or comments of Phil? Yes, Ms. Ring.
So can you refresh my memory on what drove the change and kind of what's lost and what's gained in the transition from law enforcement to civilian run?
Phil probably doesn't know, so I'll try to answer and the sheriff can supplement. What drove it is staffing. The sheriff's department 18 months ago had a crisis in terms of staffing. Right. They were down 12 or 13 in the jail. In terms of jailers, they were down pretty much in every department. And the sheriff's primary responsibility is to man the jail and to make sure we have road deputies and detectives. And so it was a choice discussed with the judges and Mr. Witt that he would no longer be able to support it. So it was staffing that drove it. We think there are hopefully benefits to going to a civilian model as opposed to the law enforcement model, and so that's pretty much what drove it.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Yes, Sheriff.
And I should say, too, that we are still involved in, if there's a violation, Shelby or one of the staff will call over and we have more public safety and concern for if somebody drives there and they're impaired, we're still involved in that. It's not a civilian where, okay, we're going to forward everything up. There's still a component of, we do have taken several into custody in the last couple months, so.
And there's housed where prior law enforcement program was housed, and so they have access, pretty readily to the Sheriff's Department, to the jail. So yes, thank you, Sheriff, for supplementing that, because under the old model, if someone tested hot, it was a deputy who was testing them, and we had an immediate response. Now, when people are testing hot, there are different processes and protocols that we're following, short of just arresting them and putting them in jail. Other questions? TAD update. Phil, Lisa, I'm not sure who's doing that. Phil?
I'll start, but I might have to rely on Lisa or Kate for some help. So, TAD numbers. Tina, would you just scroll down real quick for me, please? So we do, again, this is all very new to me, but we do quarterly TAD reports. It's going to be after the minutes. We do quarterly TAD reports, and that was due this week. So we have put together that for Wisconsin Department of Justice. So really, when we look at this here in a second, I guess it's not on there, sorry. We're roughly, again, we're halfway through our year, and of the $195,000 we received from TAD, we've spent, again, I think $110,000 of that. It's not on there. Sorry, Tina, that's my fault. So the majority of that goes towards personnel. So our TAD financials are, they're in line with where they've been. I think the biggest update I have with TAD is this is a non-competitive TAD year for us, but we still have to submit to receive funding for next year. But there's a different process this year. Lisa, Kate, and I just got an email that Judge Waterman forwarded to us that there's kind of an extra step that we'll need to do this summer and fall. So Lisa and Kate and I will be sitting in on a teleconference with Department of Justice about this. It's a pre-application, essentially, is what we have to do. They want us to, the Department of Justice wants each county that's received prior TAD funding to make them aware of whether or not we're going to be moving forward. And so we'll be doing that. That's due in August. And then we'll submit for the new TAD dollars in September or October. Lisa, did I miss anything? I probably missed a lot, actually.
Just one key piece. The additional, there's $2 million additional for 2023. So we're going to be discussing, Kate, Phil and I are going to meet after the webinar to discuss what would be appropriate for us to ask for as a category. They have different categories and what you could be applying for, and ours would be continuing, like we've already have our programs established. So obviously there's 72 counties that could be applying for this. 54 of those counties already received TAD funding. It's only $2 million, but we're going to talk about what would be appropriate for us to ask for. In regards to the diversion program, I have let Phil know that the core reporting is very tedious and time consuming for our staff because our primary focus is case management. We have like 296 people that are on deferred judgment of convictions, and 63 of those are TAD clients. Those TAD clients do need specific focus for them because there are substance use cases. So that's what the diversion program's perspective is on that point, but we're going to be discussing that more next week. Is that good? Anything else?
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Anything?
Any questions of Phil or Lisa about TAD? As I said, we've had a number of transitions, and another transition that has occurred within the last number of months is our former CASA director, I think I can say abruptly, decided to terminate his engagement with the CASA program, which caused somewhat of panic because we had just certified 2 volunteers. They were getting their first cases. We were in the process of training, I think, 5 or 6 other folks to become CASA advocates, and we have suddenly a vacancy at the top. I can say that the state organization stepped up and provided a lot of assistance during that period of transition. Sue Schwartz, who is the state director, I know was up in Hudson a number of times. She took over the management of our 2 current volunteers, and her daughter, who I think is also employed by that state organization, took over a lot of the training. So we did have support, but it caused a disruption right at a point where we thought, okay, we're going to be up and running and off to the races, because the number of kids in out-of-home placement in St. Croix continues to grow. Don't quote me, but my recollection the last time we met was we have an excess of 90 kids who are in out-of-home placements who we think this program would really benefit. I can tell you that our 2 certified CASA representatives got challenging cases and really stepped up immediately and provided great information. I know Judge Nordstrand had a hearing where one of those representatives was called upon spontaneously. She was a little nervous, but provided insight that hadn't been thought of by anyone else, because she's in the home every week. She's meeting with this child once a week and has a different perspective, a different thought as to maybe what should happen. Our other representative is taking a modest leave of absence, we hope for only a short period of time, given some personal health issues. But with all that said, I want to introduce Sean Kinsella, who is our new CASA director. Sean will introduce himself and share some information, but keep in mind this is a separate 401(3)(b) or whatever the IRS. It's not St. Croix County's dollars. It's primarily grant funded. The county does provide in-kind support, an office, and some other technical support, but it is a separate organization, but certainly with ties to the courts, ties to HHS. So, Sean, introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Sean Kinsella, the new executive director. I'm about 3.5 weeks into my new post here, so bear with us. But I think, you know, if you don't know, it was kind of a doors locked situation, so we've kind of had to crack through a lot of passwords, a lot of digital media that has been locked down. We did start a new training on Tuesday. So we'll have, in 4 weeks, we'll have another group of advocates that'll be ready to step in and support some youth that are in dire need. And our goal is to continue to grow that program. You will see me around from time to time, and I do house here. So I'm up by probate, and there is no real sign on the door, though. We'll hope to get that fixed so that people can find me. But I'm really happy to be here, and I look forward to interacting with all of you in the near future.
Thank you.
Any questions that anyone has?
I should have mentioned Bridget Warren is here. Bridget is the Director of Restorative Services in River Falls, but she's also on CASA board, and I know was part of the search committee. So anything you want to share, Bridget?
Actually, yeah. So I just wanted to say that Sean comes to us extremely qualified, and he courageously and extremely gracefully just stepped into this position and really picked up right where we left off. He's tying up loose ends. He's starting new trainings. I mean, we, as the board, I hope I speak for us all, saying we really couldn't be happier with Sean and everything he's been doing. So thank you so much for being here and for committing all your time to this mission.
Thank you.
Judge.
So I just want to reiterate, confirm what Judge Needham said about the usefulness of this program in practical terms. So I guess I'm the only judge that's had a CASA advocate in the courtroom on now 2 different hearings. And in each occasion, I learned things from the advocate that I wouldn't have gotten from anywhere else. And why is that? Because She's spending time with this child every week, just with the child, all right? Spending time playing, interacting, asking questions, doing fun things, all of those, and she's gotten information and a point of view that I would not have gotten from, as you know, obviously the social workers involved in cases have limited time per child with the great caseload they've got and the obligations they've got. Our guardians ad litem, they have limited interaction just by the nature of the beast in terms of our process. But these folks really get time with the kids, and that's so important. And it's such a tool, and I know the other judges are going to be very grateful for the help.
Any other questions or comments? I know at least when I met with Roy Schoberg, who is the director, the president of the CASA board, we need volunteers, we need advocates. And so I have suggested to Sean that for those of us who live out county, meaning not in the Hudson corridor, we would, I think, be more than willing to try to assist and coordinate some of that outreach in Richmond and Baldwin and Glenwood City and some of the areas where our kids are coming from. We don't have a lot of kids, and I'm being candid, from Hudson who are in out-of-home placement. Most of our kids come out county, and so we want to make sure we have advocates from those communities, A, for convenience, but also for familiarity. They know their community and they know what the resources are. So I know Sean will be working with his board and I think others to try and solicit more volunteers. I said, with 90 kids out of home, arguably we'd like 90 volunteers. That's not realistic, but it's certainly the dynamic Ms. Ring.
So that was my question. How do you decide then who? Because you have limited capacity or limited resources, so then you just pick the cases where you think it'd help you most, or how does that work?
And this is, I suppose, maybe not a surprise. The first case we picked, we wanted success, because success will breed success, and if we have success at those levels, it will encourage, we think, volunteers, encourage engagement. So the initial two cases that we selected were those where we knew we had a great need. The kids had been in out-of-home placement for reasons certainly out of their control, primarily child neglect, child abuse. And so we picked two families, two children who we knew we could engage with quickly, and where the advocates would be able to get in and boots on the ground, so to speak. As we have more advocates volunteer and trained, then it's a process that Sean and Michelle Lesha from HHS talk about and say, okay, where is the need? And we're looking, I think, primarily, Agnes, at kids who we believe are going to be in out-of-home for a lengthy period of time. So we can start building those relationships and that foundation. So Sean will meet with the department, probably the online social worker, and just try to make a good fit. We need males, too, let's be honest. We have our two advocates right now are both females. I think most of the volunteers we're in training are females, so we need men as well. So I throw it out there for those of you who may have contacts or at least ideas as to how we can get the word out and hopefully get people into the volunteering.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
What's the time commitment, and if we have volunteers, should they contact Sean, or where's the best place to send interested members?
Contact Sean, and I don't want to speak for him, but the time commitment is we want our advocates to spend at least 1 hour a week with their kids. We also want them to come to court hearings because, again, they're that voice in the courtroom that we haven't heard to this point. It may involve, likewise, some time with the social worker to talk about what they're seeing, things that don't rise to the level of court reports, but that's, I think, kind of the commitment. Yes, Kate.
And I just wanted to mention, too, that there's a pretty significant training commitment up front too. And so I think a lot of times we end up getting people who are retired because they have the time to do that. But it certainly doesn't have to be just retired people, but there is a pretty significant, and Sean, maybe you can speak to how much the training piece takes up.
Yeah, it's 30 hours of training, and it's very detailed, right? We want people to be able to walk into the court system and not be overwhelmed. So we're really trying to educate them about how that process works. And they are generating court documents, so they have to learn about that process. It takes about 4 weeks to complete the training. We do it in 2 days a week, 3-hour sessions. So there are 4 of those. And then there's a few other things, but then they'll graduate and they'll go through a ceremony with the court, and then they start their advocacy. And we also walk hand in hand with them while they start their process. So they're not just cut loose.
Other questions or comments? Thank you to Sean and to Bridget. Yvonne Larson, also one of our advocates, is here. She's back. Comprehensive community service. I think Kate mentioned it in her report in terms of their engagement from treatment court. We have 2 representatives, Becky and Paul, who are going to give us an introduction as to what they do and how they're serving the justice system.
Good morning. Thank you for having us today. My name is Becky Kerr. I am the administrator for the CCS program, and
my name is Paul Wick. I am the Ccs Service Director, which means I'm in charge of the clinical aspects of the program.
so what does CCS stand for? It's Comprehensive Community Services. CCS is a voluntary, person-centered, and community-based mental health and substance use disorder treatment program that offers eligible recipients opportunities to receive traditional and non-traditional therapy. We work actually with all ages, so from kids all the way through adults. This is a program that is very unique. We are in 70 counties in the state of Wisconsin, so not unique in Wisconsin, but it's unique in that we can offer non-traditional services that sometimes just traditional talk therapy for somebody doesn't work, or maybe it's minimally effective. This allows people to learn coping skills in different ways, so it's really effective in that way.
So if you think about CCS, and we're thinking about this as a program that is for folks that have tried our traditional services, and they maybe are just having minimal, but they continue to have problems, right? And we have other folks that we talked about today that are also needing inpatient services. We're that program that's kind of in between. So there don't have to be an inpatient yet, and this traditional isn't working. So the idea is that in CCS we use teaming, and so you saw community-based. The idea of CCS when it was written by the state of Wisconsin is that we would use teaming. So when you are having a recipient that is involved in CCS, what they would do is they would have a whole team of community people around them that are going to meet usually on about a monthly basis with their caseworker or their what we call service facilitator. You'll see that a little further down. And the people that are serving them, as well as people that they might invite to be a part of their team. So it could be people that their pastor or their friends, because the idea of CCS is to help them to develop how they're going to move on and have progress and get to their recovery as they define it with the support of their community around them so that they can stay within that community. And the idea again being that we help them get to a place in their recovery that they can take the ball and run with it so that they aren't having to have formalized services for the rest of their life, but instead find a way to move forward in their life. And again, it's very important because we are a strengths-based program. So again, it isn't trying to look at somebody from their deficits, but it's trying to find those strengths that they do have and build on those strengths so that they can find that recovery. You could just hit the button. All right. So obviously what we're trying to do is to really reduce the impacts of mental health and substance use issues. And like Becky said, we work with kids as little as, I think in our program we have some kids as little as 4 years old, and we have adults into their, like me, into our 60s and 70s, right? So we have the whole range of people that we can serve within CCS. And it's trying to help them find their best place that, and I say the word recovery, but their recovery, not as I might define it for them, but as they define it for them. Because it's their life and it's their ability, you know, they're still they're experts. Now they may have certain things, and all right. There may be, you know, folks that come to us in CCS that have involvement with the courts. One of the most important pieces to remember about CCS, as it was written by the state, is that it's voluntary. So they can't, nobody can be ordered in. So whether you're a Chapter 51 or whether you're involved in a court system, you can't be ordered into CCS. But you can certainly encourage, because CCS could be a way that they can meet their requirements. And with the idea, again, being that we would surround them with various treatment options. And so earlier we talked about, you know, I think we all know about like therapy, right? We all know therapy, we all know hospitalizations. When we have other treatment options which are non-traditional, we're talking about folks that maybe don't do that well in just face-to-face discussions, but maybe we can offer them equine therapy. Equine therapy being where you would use actually, we have therapists that, it's called EGALA, and there's another one called PATH, where they actually have the therapist with the horse and the recipient's really interacting with the horse, and the therapist is interpreting so that you're kind of coming at the person indirectly. But we also have other things, such as where the state has allowed us to pay for yoga. So if somebody needs to learn ways to reduce their anxieties, and medication isn't really an option, how can we help them learn biofeedback, etc.? We have an array of 40, 50? Yeah, 40 or 50 providers that we have contracted with that are part of CCS. And so that when a recipient is involved in our program, they have this option of different choices of programs that they can work with. And again, that last point on here is really important. It's a team's approach. Because the idea is that, and you know, maybe one of the things that when the state developed this was so that all systems could actually talk to one another and sit down at the table with the recipient and actually talk about how can we help you move forward? How do we work together as a team to address the things that you're looking to have happen? And so that's a really important piece of our program, is that it is this teaming, and it is this idea of helping somebody to stay in the community and to move forward with their life. Our philosophy is that mental health and substance use disorders are treatable. It's conditions that people can recover from. Again, if we're talking about recovery, we're going to believe in that. And you know, if we have adequate supports for folks, we give them that chance to really do that, and do that in the community where they live. Okay, so here's some cool stuff about CCS. It's 100% paid for by medical assistance. So if a recipient is involved in CCS in St. Croix County and they have medical assistance is paying 100% for all those services. Nothing's coming out of that recipient's pocket. So when we talked about today, you know, some of our folks out of treatment court that have been made that referral, and they have that medical assistance, we know we're not taking from them financially. We're actually, this program, the way it was written in the state of Wisconsin, allows these folks to have a footing to move forward. Now, obviously, we have to be a county resident because we're St. Croix County program. You need to be able to develop your recovery goals. So if you're coming to the program, you know, what's your goal? What are you looking to do with this? You see this thing called the functional screen because, again, the state of Wisconsin is paying 100% for this. They have this little thing that we do that is required that says you gather a bunch of information, you plug it into this algorithm in the state, and they say, yes, they're eligible for CCS or they aren't. You would have to be functioning pretty well to not be eligible for CCS. So, but again, it's one of those hurdles that would have to be done to be a part of CCS. And we talked about requiring more than just an outpatient services. And obviously you need a mental health or substance use diagnosis because again, that's going to be a part of your functional screen. And then I talked about the MA piece. So again, you have to have MA if you're going to be enrolled in our CCS program. Because it's a voluntary program, we ask that people self-refer. So whether it's a family that needs some help making that call because they got a kiddo that needs help, or if it's a person involved with the treatment court, or if it's just somebody that you would recommend, hey, this is a really neat program, you ought to consider it, we're still going to ask that they would call into our intake, and we'll get to that number in a minute, to make that referral for themselves. Because as it's written in the state rules, it is a voluntary program. Then we'll do the functional screen, which we talked about. So they'll meet with a service facilitator. They'll gather that information. They'll plug all that information into the functional screen that the state has. And then 99% of the time it says, yes, you can be involved in CCS. And then we get to doing the application and the admission agreements because it is a state program. There's a lot of paperwork. And so they will sign their paperwork. We then would move on to, once they've signed their paperwork, it gets pretty intense because in the first 30 days by rule, and a comprehensive assessment needs to be completed, a recovery plan needs to be completed, and your initial team meeting is completed. So that first 30 days is very intense for anybody involved in our program. And we tell them that up front. But again, if you're going to ever make that recommendation to somebody, just let them know that there's going to be some commitment to this. And then from there on, we have team meetings, usually on kind of a monthly basis, especially early on, to kind of help that person as they're moving forward in their recovery. Recovery team members, I talked a little bit about this earlier, but it's, you know, obviously your service recipient or your parent and legal guardian, your facilitators, which is in our speak, in CCS speak, would be maybe what you might call a case manager or a social worker, but it's your service facilitator in CCS. Anybody who's non-formal supports, natural supports, we always want to have those on a team. Mental health professional is another member of your team. Usually it's the person who is, as the state rule is written, is the person who kind of comes in and advises our service facilitators and double checks to make sure that there's always medical necessity. Again, they're the ones signing off to make sure that this is actually needed, and if so, it's a way for MA to kind of go, yes, we've had somebody look at this and it's okay for us to pay for it. Substance use professionals are the same as our mental health professionals. They look at any substance use issues. Peer support specialists, mentors, again, these could be, and providers, these are all services that we offer. Just another on the idea of your recovery team. But then again, if you look that it's always around the recipient and what is that recipient needing and how are we helping them with that recovery. And then the service providers and then your facilitator and your coordinator around it who are helping you kind of run that team meeting. This actually needs to be updated because there are even more counties now involved in CCS, I think up to about 70. In St. Croix, we have what is called a shared services model. So we share our certain services with Eau Claire and Barron County around training, quality improvement, with Eau Claire, we share a health record, or the same health record. They have theirs, we have ours, but we share what do you learn from it. They're actually a little ahead of us right now. They've already released their NX, so I talk with them about what they're learning, so hopefully we can learn from their mistakes. Our advantages. The whole idea behind CCS is really to integrate those services and to make sure that those services the person's receiving are really connected to one another and are built off of each other, so that we aren't duplicating services and that we're all pulling in the same direction for that recipient. And again, you can see that just the better continuum of services invites community coordination or community participation. You know, again, we're trying to be holistic and we're trying to be very cost effective. We've talked a little bit about this, but again, being a self-referral, but most important are the 2 phone lines there. If you have somebody that you're thinking, the adult referral line is 715-246-8255. And for our youth, 715-246-8260. And if they call the wrong line, we'll help them get to the right line, okay? So, but if you know this in advance, this is where it's at. Any questions for us?
Any questions of Paul or Becky? Well, thank you very much. I had heard of it, but I didn't have a clue as to what you were doing. I think it's also a resource, arguably, that, as you said, on a voluntary basis, the courts, probation, others, I think, certainly have the ability to engage. So thank you.
You bet. And we also brought some handouts as well as our pamphlet for potential recipients that you can guys use to hand out and help them understand as you're maybe encouraging them to be a part of the program.
We'll leave those on the table.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. We also have Julie Smith here. Julie is a person who, at least from what I've been told, has stepped up and recognized a need in St. Croix County for sober living facilities and homes. And so we invited Julie. She runs Onyx House, and she's going to tell us briefly about her program and opportunities. So Julie.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Still morning, yes, still morning. I'll just introduce myself. As you said, I'm Julie Smith. I'm the owner-operator of Onyx Sober Living. A little background about me. I've been a nurse for about 23 years in a variety of different settings. But the one I found most of my passion was in a treatment facility in Minnesota as a nurse manager. I learned a lot about addiction, a lot about recovery. We were a dual diagnosis facility, so I also learned a lot about mental health and how that plays in with substance abuse. And just sort of forged my path into helping fill this need. I do have a family history of substance use. My mother was an alcoholic, died from the effects of alcoholism about 6 years ago. My son struggles with meth addiction in and out. So I understand from a family perspective how hard that is, what that disappointment looks like, and also what it means to have a supportive setting around you when you're ready to try again. So as everybody knows, we've talked about this a lot today. Recovery has its challenges. It's really hard to get into treatment. It's hard to navigate the system. These are just some of the top things that I have found in working with this population. Housing, permanent address is one of the #1 concerns for people who are trying to get better. But they also struggle with legal issues, medical concerns, mental health stuff, employment opportunities, transportation, and a sober support network. So our target market when we started, we originally opened 2 homes, one for men, one for women. Our target market was anyone in early recovery who was looking for a new way of life. And so we, at the beginning, received clients directly from jail, directly from treatment. We actually changed our model a couple of years ago and closed our women's house and just focused on men. The program that we were running just seemed to benefit them better. Women needed more services than we had. So our market is predominantly, well, now it's almost exclusively males because that's what we focus on. Many are single, almost all of them single. Most have children that they usually are not able to see when they first come into us. Probably our average age is about 30. This is the Western region. These are the 18 counties that we are focusing on growing our business in. Currently, we have 3 homes for men in St. Croix County with 2 units for families in recovery. I have 2 homes in Dunn County and 1 in Polk County. We are hoping to expand across this region and provide this service, as far as we can make it. 2017 study showed the 47,000 people in need, and there was like 73% of that population were underserved or not being served. So there's a picture of one of our houses. Our homes are considered a level 2 home by the National Association of Recovery Resident Standards. What that means is we are built on a social model. It is peer-to-peer accountability, so everybody in the homes is working the same program. We do not have staff on site. We do have a peer leader, house manager in the homes who has been raised up through our program, so they understand what our expectations are. They are solid in their recovery, and they help new people by mentoring them and raising them up through our program. The peer-to-peer accountability has been a really important piece for a lot of people in this region. There really aren't enough peer support people. And so when we started it, we were surprised by that. We were surprised by the struggles of the recovery community. Now we have 30 beds in St. Croix County, so it has really helped with the peer accountability. Some of our program for reentry, we do have expectations, including we require 100% sobriety in our homes. So if you are caught using, you're asked to leave until you can come back with a clean UA. We do require that you go to some recovery meetings, 3 or 4 a week. We require that you are employed or get a job within a couple of weeks of being there. You do have to participate with the other members of the house. So we are not just a place to lay your head. If you are coming into Onyx, you will get to know your housemates. You'll get to know the other Onyx people. It is, you don't just come in at 11 o'clock at night and sleep there and leave at 7 in the morning and then go hang out with whoever you feel like. So it's just a different level of accountability that a lot of people are used to. We did implement a goal sheet probably, I'd say about 2 years ago. We found a lot of people were coming in and just going, all right, time to get my apartment after 3 weeks of being sober. And so we gave them a goal sheet that includes, getting health insurance, getting an AODA assessment, figuring out where you're at with your legals so you're not missing your court dates, and completing your 4-month stay, doing budgeting. And once they looked at the goal sheet and could realize that, if you put all those goals into play, then you're going to be much more successful when you're back out in the world. So a lot of the men have really embraced that. I think their biggest struggle in the home right now is budgeting. I hear that one a lot. So we're going to start holding some budgeting classes, see if we can help them with that. Our homes are fully furnished. We have all of the household items that you need. We provide all of the cleaning supplies. They are really responsible for their personal hygiene things and food. Every person there has a fridge and a cupboard to store their food in. And we've tried to be really thoughtful and make sure everything is there. House provides coffee, which everybody has found is really awesome. When we initially started, we started planning sober events with our crew. And there's a TED Talk out there that says the opposite of addiction is connection. And so we thought it was really important to show them how to have fun sober. So one of our very first events was the Hazelden Kickball Tournament in 2019. We took second place. Yeah. We were the most spirited team also. We also hosted a Super Bowl party, and for Halloween we had a costume contest. that was themed by house. And so you can see in between 2019 and 2021, the growth of our of our guys. The costume contest was a lot of fun because they had to figure out how to, come together as a house. The house that won was our family housing. They showed up as an 80s rock band, fashionably late as well. So here are some statistics from Onyx. So we opened in 2018. We moved in our first guy. Since then, we've grown from 19 beds to 59 beds, and we maintain about a 90% capacity over all of our houses. We opened our family housing about a year and a half ago in Somerset. We converted a duplex, so we have 2 families in recovery. Some member of those homes has gone through our initial program, and we have reunited them with their significant others and children. They are still required to follow a majority of our program by going to meetings, showing up at our mandatory house meeting, and just still maintaining activity in the recovery community. So we've had 418 people have applied, and 294 have resided in Onyx since we started. On the right, it shows the things we track for our discharges. So 234 people have discharged. And while it doesn't seem like great success, we all know that in the recovery community, there's pretty good success when you have people coming out in a normal transition. So we count normal transition as meeting the 4-month commitment, giving a 30-day notice, and moving into a safe environment from our homes. So we had about 13% of the discharged people have done that. We had 32%-ish that have left early. So some of that population left early to a safe setting. So we just counted them as left early and not a normal transition because they didn't meet the 4 months. But some of them are doing well. 36% have relapsed. 17% we have done an administrative discharge, which is usually someone who is not quite ready for what we have to offer and is causing some discord in the houses. We have some guidelines for trying to help them get into our expectations a little better, giving them more meetings. And if they're just not ready, they're not ready. And we tell them that. We're like, it's okay. You just can't not be ready here. So how do you get in? Pretty much you call me. I do all of the intake work right now. So you just phone call or an email to me. The contact information is on the next slide. I either will talk to a referent or the client about what they're looking for, if they've ever done sober housing before, what the recovery path is going to look like. We have the client fills out an application. I tried to do a phone interview. I can't really do phone interviews with guys in jail, so I really kind of count on probation and jailers to give me information if I need it. And then we just kind of coordinate dates. I'll hold a bed for up to 2 weeks for somebody who's waiting to get out of treatment or jail. I have taken people same day. It just depends on what their need is. And then we get them moved in. My house managers do all of my intakes, so they welcome the new person. They show them, they give them a tour of the house. They get them settled, go over the expectations, and, welcome them into our Onyx family. There's my contact information.
Questions, comments of Julie? I've had, folks in court who have been at Onyx, and I can tell you that there was a young man recently who said it saved his life. So that certainly is potential for success. Judge.
So we have people in treatment court that use these services, and it's been a powerful tool for us. This is a resource that not just Julie, but beyond Julie, we need more of this kind of resource in this county, because we don't have places for people who've got housing problems. They're coming out of, they might be returning to the county after leaving prison. They might be leaving jail, and they don't have opportunities, and Julie provides them. And what does it cost per month?
It's $600.
So $600 a month, and this could be, I think it's a good program. I know the county has even got some money that was set aside as part of that ARPA funding to help assist in sober rent, and so that's a positive. So more we can do on this. I know some time ago we even talked about the idea of if we can get people, you know, perhaps even out of jail a little early to get them transitioned into a safe housing setting, that could be a positive in terms of, you know, you look at what the county pays. I don't know, what does it cost to house somebody in the jail? It's not cheap.
No, it's about 62 a day.
62 a day. Maybe we figure out if somebody is on a sentence and it's appropriate, you know, I'm sure the judges would be willing to talk about a transition out of jail, stay some jail time, get people into an actual safe housing setting, and with Julie or another provider. So this is a great program, and I'm a big supporter of it, and I know the other judges are as well.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Lisa.
I'm just curious more about your peer support. What are you looking for those individuals that could help others?
So we pretty much draw our peer support out of the Alano Club currently, and being that we've had a number of people successfully get through Onyx, we kind of count on them as well. What works best for especially men in early recovery is to have another man with solid life experience similar to theirs. So usually somebody who has some kind of legal history, has some kind of substance abuse history, that they can connect with one-to-one. And most often it's coming from Alano right now. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Sort of.
I just wondered if it needed to be someone that went through the program, or if it's more of just like, you know, peer support, helping them through recovery, but not necessarily that they went through.
So it doesn't really require them to have gone through Onyx, and we don't have any formal peer support. You know, we don't have any employees. So everything that is sought for treatment at Onyx, they seek out individually. We are there as a resource. We are there as, you know, I'm pretty much their biggest cheerleader. I'm doling out phone numbers of like, oh, you need therapy? Here, call these people. They'll get you in. So I've made a lot of the community connections. So when they call, they can say, hey, I'm at Onyx and I need this. And they'll be like, oh, okay, which helps. You know, it's hard. The system, I'm surprised, even in Minnesota, the system is hard to get through. And I'm like, I had a hard time, and I am smart and sober. And I was like, how? How do you get through that system? You know, when you're struggling with addiction every single day. So we just try to put pieces together and fill that gap a little bit. Currently, I do not have a wait list. I think I have 6 beds open in St. Croix County. Family housing has been full for a while. I get a lot of requests for that, and we're hoping to expand. Our business model holds 3 homes and 2 units for family in each county is what we're hoping to expand to. So right now, when we just started the family housing, it has been awesome, and I wish I would have had that right at the very beginning, but.
One last thing. And she talked about this, the fact that she chose for various reasons to get out of housing women in sober facilities. It is an enormous problem in this county, all right? And I don't know how we solve it. I don't know who steps up to provide some resources for women who need sober housing, but we got to figure this out. And it isn't going to be the judges, so here you are, okay? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Witt.
What would it take for you to expand to create more beds? What does it need to make that happen?
In St. Croix County?
Yeah, that's where I'm mostly interested in.
Or anywhere? I mean, pretty much we have been funding the homes independently. My husband and I buy the homes. And we are prepared to expand wherever we're needed. We have the 3 homes in St. Croix County and have thought that that was pretty good. And considering I often have beds open in St. Croix County, I'm a little like, where, and are there certain communities that you think it would be needed more?
No, I don't know where the need is that you have. I was just wondering, if there's a demand, what does it take to create the capacity? So.
Yeah, pretty much. We are actively looking for new homes. The market kind of sucks right now. It just does. So we're kind of waiting for the market to correct before we really push at expanding. But we actually put our 3 houses here and haven't really thought about expanding in St. Croix, just because I was worried about oversaturating the market, I guess. To Judge Nordstrand's comment, sober housing for women is critically important. We understand that. The biggest barrier we came across is most women have kids or a significant other, healthy or not healthy, to go back to. And so they were constantly being pulled back to their unhealthy settings. So that was part of our decision to close that and open the family housing. So it would almost women need a lot of services surrounding them and a lot of solid female mentors that are healthy to support them in that. So, and I've said it more than once, I'd be more than happy to go back into opening housing for women, but I need people who can bring services to the table. So, just like he said, here you go.
Thank you, Julie. Subcommittee reports, I'm going to ask for brevity, which for my colleagues is sometimes not the order of the day, but we will try to get through this pretty quickly. Domestic violence and family issues, Judge Black could not be here, and Phil, I think you have the update.
Yeah, excuse me, just very briefly, the next subcommittee meeting will be next Wednesday, the 20th at 11:30 here in the Government Center, I believe in room 1216. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Behavioral health, Bob.
Thank you, Judge. The Behavioral Health Subcommittee last met in March. Our meeting in May was canceled as Phil was coming on board, but our next meeting is scheduled for this month on the 25th. A couple of items that have come up since our last subcommittee meeting that I think will be on the agenda for the 25th involve an effort that's currently underway in the state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin sent a delegation to New England. I was a part of that. As a part of a National Judicial Task Force to examine state courts' response to mental illness. This was an effort to look at diversionary programs in other states and develop models within our own state here that align kind of with an intercept model, one that looks at the particular points in time at which an intervention might be effective in keeping people from cycling through the courts, cycling through jail, or emergency departments who have behavioral health conditions. So it ties in with a lot of the discussion that we're having today. It involves recovery housing, it involves peer recovery support, and it involves some of the efforts that we're currently undertaking through ARPA funding. That is an ongoing steering committee that I'm a part of along with Chief Justice Ziegler from the Supreme Court in Wisconsin and Circuit Court Judge Scott, I'm blanking on his last name. Yes, thank you. Along with the Medicaid director from Wisconsin, which is helpful to have the Medicaid director involved in these things. There might actually be some funding to develop some new diversionary ideas, or here in St. Croix County at least, to look at what we're already doing, what we already have available, how we can connect the dots with a lot of that, and which this leads into my next point. We're applying for, that is, HHS is applying for a grant through the state of Wisconsin to develop community-based withdrawal management services. We're drafting the proposal right now. It's due August 5th. There's some other barriers to overcome, but if that's successful, it would be a program here in St. Croix County, probably in New Richmond, that would involve the option for law enforcement, for hospitals, for community members to utilize this service, people who may have acute intoxication and or withdrawal potential for any drug. So it would be an option for law enforcement to drop off folks at this center as opposed to an emergency department or opposed to bringing them to jail or some other option. They would receive medical care and behavioral health supports in this kind of environment. So we're applying for that funding. If it's successful, I will let you know. We'll be talking more about it at the HHS board next week. I wanted to thank Ailey Peterson from Western Wisconsin Health, Julie from Onyx, and the sheriff and all law enforcement who have shown support for this kind of effort. And I'll keep you posted on and the Behavioral Health Subcommittee posted on the progress for the steering committee and on the withdrawal management proposal. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. A lot is going on, so we really appreciate your efforts and your subcommittee's efforts. Any questions of Bob? Criminal Justice Subcommittee, Judge Waterman.
Our next meeting is August 1, and our work continues to involve support for the Justice Services Department as they transition from the law enforcement model to the civilian model.
Thank you. Do you want to segue into, it wasn't on here, but the Child Juvenile Justice Subcommittee Task Force?
That task force meets monthly. Largely it's been more educational and conversational so that all participants in the child or juvenile justice system can better understand what each other's roles are, what their functions are, what standards they use to do their work, so that we better understand how all of the pieces fit together and hopefully improve the outcome for children at risk. Our next meeting is August 2, right? August 3 at noon.
Any questions of Judge Waterman about either of those subcommittees? Executive, there's not a lot to report other than we meet generally monthly. So if you have ideas for agendas, ideas for projects or initiatives, certainly communicate with any member of the executive committee. We will be looking at warrant resolution a day and whether that's something we think arguably should move forward. I think we may also now be exploring sober living and some of those things, and again looking at a comprehensive collaborative approach to trying to serve that need. Treatment court, Judge Nordstrand, other than as reported.
We've said enough.
But you do have a subcommittee meeting coming up to talk about your policies, procedures.
Right, and that's on the 8th of August.
And again, while we have identified subcommittees, if there's anyone at the table or otherwise who wants to be involved or engage in any of those efforts, don't hesitate to contact the chair, contact Phil, because we always welcome new ideas, folks who maybe have a different perspective or a different background to offer suggestions, ideas. So thank you. Is there any request from the body for future agenda items? If you do or think of them or are reluctant to share today, again, contact me, contact Phil, and we're always looking for new ideas as well as initiatives. There really are no announcements or correspondence. Again, we welcome Chairman Long to the body. I know he attended the treatment court graduation, and so we look forward to his leadership both at the county board level, but also his involvement with this group. With that said, hearing nothing else, we are adjourned. Mr. Golly.
Just real quick, there are coffee and donuts in the
Oh,
back.
coffee and donuts. Don't forget the coffee and donuts. Next meeting, September 8th. Thank you.